All right, here we go. So now that we have our logo vectorized, now let's start playing around with some formatting options and really try to figure out how is this logo really going to start looking like now that we have an icon we're really happy with. So the first thing I always do is I always duplicate my artboards before I move on to the next step. So the reason why I do that, as I said in the other video, is I have every step of the process documented. If I need to go back, there's all these other forms instead of committing to something that I've done and either having to hit undo 1,000 times or just completely losing it. So that's what I do. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some boxes for us, and these boxes are going to be there to give us some options. And I like doing this just the same way as I did my sketches. It forces me to have to create logos and to not stop, to just start filling as much as I can in. So let's actually do 3 rows. Keep it consistent with our sketches. 9 sketches, 9 vector logo layout options. So let's change the lines. I like to have them really thin, even like a light gray color. And I'll just go ahead and start placing my logo in here. All right, that looks good. I feel like the dimensions look nice. And another thing I like to do is when I start working with at least this phase before I start jumping into color, I'm thinking more about values. What I want to be prominent, what I want to kind of fade back, and I do that working in grayscale. So I'm just going to expand this out. Now, I did a dingus move here. So I wrote King James and it's King George, and I'm totally going to call myself out on that. So, and I realized that whenever I actually go here. So let's change that to George. All right. Good thing you catch that stuff in the very beginning, because it would suck if I would have kept going and just assuming that it was King James. So always refer back to your source. That's definitely something that completely saved this. And just double check. If you question anything, you always have your source, you have your brief, you have your client emails, you have all these things to refer back to. So I'm actually going to use Adobe Caslin. I think this is a great font for this project. And I think that it's a very classic font. It has very beautiful shapes to it. It's classic, but it's also a very modern font too. And it's a serif font, so it has that old world look to it, but it looks like something that could be used for, like a very high-end liquor bottle, labeling or something like that. So we want that high quality kind of feel to it. So, and the other font I'm using is Avenir. I think I'm using medium. Yes. And so now I'm just really trying to figure out the composition, really how big do I want each letter form to be, so that it looks pretty good. I'm not completely sold on it, but just like our sketches, we just double check. We'll just keep experimenting. So let's look at our reference again. Let's see if there's anything that's working. And I really don't feel there's anything that's like really standing out. Maybe the lines could be something to bring, but I want to really make sure that I'm not doing that original, because I feel like that original is not feeling luxurious. I feel like it's not giving that luxury kind of justice. So let's just start working on concept 2. That concept 1's a pretty good spot. So now let's go to the next one. So let's try something different. Still liking the fonts. Let's just start working with some shapes and some dynamics and things like that. So let's add an arc. These are always fun really simple ways to make things dynamic. And they got so many different options, and you can just play around and just see what does what. I know I'm going to want this arc. That might be a little bit too much of an arc, so I'll just tweak it down a little bit. But this is just a really fun way to get some really fast results, and just seeing, what works, because that's what this is about, man. It's about experimentation. Don't be afraid to experiment, and that's another great thing about having all these different squares and to fill all these spots, because it's forcing you to experiment. It get dirty. Don't make it perfect the very first time. You're going to be limiting yourself. You're not going to be able to get the best out of you, because like I said, the best creativity is when you don't know how it's supposed to look and it kind of tells you. So that's all we're doing. We're just allowing it to tell us. So like, for instance, it's creating a curve. So what would help kind of fill some space? Well, let's bring some of those lines that we talked about. That starts kind of completing the space. I wouldn't have thought of that for the first one. So you just kind of have to pivot and keep trying to tweak until you're happy with it. So that's pretty good. Let's just change the sides of this. That looks good. Those are a little too thick, so let's bring them down. There, that looks good. Looks classy, looks thin, has a sophisticated kind of look to it. And I'm just wanting to duplicate another one. And let's see where this one will go. So what I think would be really cool for this one, if it does more of a squash effect. And I don't think Adobe has that. Like, I think there's probably a way to do it. Let's try this way. Nope. Let's see. Nope, that's not working. That's not the effect I'm going for. You can kind of get an idea what I'm trying to go for. So let's actually, what I like to do too is I also like to use Photoshop to warp my text and then vector it again. And so let's just bring this bad boy into Photoshop. So let's make a new document and we'll just tweak it and manipulate it there. I always find that Photoshop's a little bit easier to do that with. So let's just create a new document, just a nice size to help us make sure we keep the logo intact. It's no pixelation going on. So let's just paste it as pixels, scale it up, and let's make it black. So I'm just hitting select all, D for default colors, X to make the foreground into the background. So now the black is there, and then Command Delete. Know your hotkeys. I got a hotkey sheet for you, so make sure you know them. Hotkeys totally make my work process so much quicker. So now I want to transform warp. So this is the more effect that I really wanted to mess with. So let's go there again. Transform, warp. Here we go. Now let's zoom in. Let's get a nice curve going on here. I think that's pretty good. I think if it stretches more than that, it's going to look too much. Well, too much. Let's bring it down a little bit. There we go. That looks pretty good. Now let's do the other side. Just want to make sure these are balanced. They're even. And that the counter right there is a really good way to know, the height of everything, so you can start making things symmetrical. But I'll also use the guides too. And this is just one way of doing this in Photoshop. So if you know any other way of doing it, do it your way. And that's what's so cool about Photoshop, and because there's a million ways to do one thing. So let's just pull our guides. That looks pretty good. Let's check the bottom. Pretty good. I'm just going to warp it just a little bit. Then I'll just hit enter to commit to that shape or return. All right, that looks good. So I'm just literally clicking and dragging it into Illustrator. Gonna go to Live Trace. All right, go to expand at the top. I did it real quick, but you just at the top. then I just select the same fill color and delete. So use that direct select tool, which is A on the keyboard, select that white. Then I go to the object, select same fill color, and deletes it all. So let's just delete that one, add that there. That looks pretty good. I'm liking how that feels. It might look a little too vertically, so I might just squash just a touch. There, that looks, I love that. Cool, I like that. So let's bring in those lines. I think those are really cool elements. And we'll just copy and paste this whole thing over. Cool. I'm really liking this this format here. Let's just bring this one because it's slightly smaller from the original. All right, that composition feels good, but I feel like it needs something else. So let's do an established 2019 kind of thing. You know, these little tweaks, these little marks, just give things a little bit more of that authentic kind of feel. Yeah, it's 2019, whatever. So what? It's cool though. It looks good. You know, let's try it up here. Does it look as good? It's feeling too forced. I don't like it. Nope. Not feeling it. I don't feel like anything should go on the crown. It's like the crown should be the kind of the showstopper of the logo, and everything's kind of supporting it and it's around it. So from a conceptual level, it doesn't work, but from a design level, it definitely does not work at all. So now that looks pretty good. I can get behind that. That looks nice. All right, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Now let's go to our next format. So we have our stacked version. Now let's do a horizontal version, because we want to make sure, like I said, we want to make sure that all these logo options that we provide will be able to work in different formats. So a vertical stacked option would look really cool on a shirt. It might look really cool on a folder, but not necessarily for a website. So this version here could be a website version. So right into the top header, the top navigation, it's more of a horizontal. You know, it could be stickers. It could be all these different things. Banner ads. You have to really consider all the many different applications that this logo is going to be on, and it has to withstand. So, and I just think of vertical, circular, horizontal. And you can think, because everything is really comes out of those compositions. So here's one version. Let's try another. Let's try and incorporate the lines. And it's just kind of whatever at this point. It's like, it looks pretty good. It makes sense. I just love the third option so much. I feel like that's going to be really the key logo. This is going to be like the secondary logo, and then we'll have like our third logo. And clients really respect that you think all the way through the process, giving them logo options. They're so happy about that. Every time that I give clients that, they're like, well, which one's my logo? And I'm like, all of them are your logos. You can use them for all different formats. This could be your main logo. And they really love that. They don't ever want to feel boxed in with their logo design. So it's our jobs to be problem solvers and to think outside the box for them and give them some solutions that, can help them and will make them happy paying clients that will want to keep coming back to us. And that's the goal. So let's try some more lines here. And I want to make this more symmetrical too. So let's just spread out that kerning. Let's just do it a little bit more. So almost the holdings kind of feels like a line in itself. We really want that King George to pop. That's what we want people to read: King George, and then Holdings LLC. Another thing to realize is this logo is going to be used for these other two brands too. So we have to really consider that whenever we're designing this. So that can be really an easy, just quick type change for each one. The crown can really be that core element that's being carried over, but maybe the color and the text and maybe some other textural kind of pattern in photography really can contribute to that brand and its specific products and services. Right now, we're just focusing on this. We're going to focus on the King George Holdings LLC, which was in the brief. So we never want to extend ourselves, right? We want to get paid what we do. Sometimes it's good to over deliver. And if you want to show options, that's awesome too. Your clients will be super happy about that. But you also want to make sure that you're not overextending yourself, because if you're overextended, then you're no good to anyone. And not only will your work suffer, but your client satisfaction will suffer too. So you want to make sure you're not spending all your time doing more than what you have to. So I'm just tweaking the first one in this row here, and I think that overall the third row so far winning for me. I'm really liking everything in the third row. Let's see if the third row will be the same winning row in the next section. So what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to bring out I want to do more of a circular logo. So I want to do a stamp. Stamps are really cool because they can work really well as like social media icons, profile pictures, stickers for sure. And I love wax seals, and I always encourage my client to get their circular logo as a wax seal. Especially if they're going for that high-end luxurious kind of feel, because when it's something tactile like that, it just takes their brand to a whole new level. So let's just work on this design here. So let's just get it in our circle. All right, so I'm gonna go to Type on Path tool, click right on the line. I'm going to sample that font. Let's make it larger to mess with the kerning. So for the King James, we're going to have it going one direction. Let's make this bigger. Just thinking. So what I'm going to do too is with the Holdings company, I'm going to have to make another circle. And as you see, the King George is going one direction. So if I were to just duplicate that and spin it, the Holdings LLC would be upside down. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a new one. Type out Holdings, get the font set up, and then I'll show you a little trick. So let's see how this looks bigger. As you start, tweaking and making decisions, you're just going to keep tweaking more and more. So now let's do the Holdings. So I'm going to type Holdings LLC. I'm going to sample that's what's cool about, actually before I do that, let's flip it. So the way that I flipped it is if you hold down Option and click on the type tool, you'll get this dialog box. So I hit flip, and then I click on the the ascender, and make sure you hit preview. And then so now as you see, as I flip back and forth, that looks great. Let's commit to that. Let's turn it. Just align it to the King George ascender. Just make this a little bit bigger. We got some more space to fill. And let's change that font. All right. Let's put a circle around it, see how it looks. Let's actually make this white. Send the circle to back. And here's the second option. And I actually like how it looks as negative space. I think it looks super cool. Let's just align it a little bit more. Looks a little bit too close to the edge. Definitely digging that. That looks pretty cool. Yeah, the stroke really helped too. I like how that stroke looks. All right, so number 2 looks pretty good. Let's see what happens with number 3. And like I said, man, I'm just creating along with you. I don't know what I'm going to create next. So let's just see. Let's see what happens. But I'm pretty happy with that number 2. Or that the second one in that third row. That looks pretty good. So let's see if there's anything that really pops. Maybe let's bring in these texts down here. This could be a really cool spot for it. Let's make it white. It looks a little small. You know, it's kind of like, you know, in the quarter, you know, the date, it's just really small. It's just, if you look closely, you can see it, but it's not really meant to like be a huge, like standing out design. It looks like I have multiple ones. Let's see. Let's do a. So this is a cool effect. If you copy and paste the white, move it with your keyboard, just up and down one notch with your left and top arrow, make that one gray or whatever that background is, and do it again. Copy and paste in place, which is Command C to copy, Command F to paste in place. Then you can do that again and make it white, and so you'll get this white, gray, white effect. So it kind of gives this cool kind of shadow effect, which looks cool. I'm not sure if it's cool for this though. I mean, I like it. It's not like I don't like it. I'm just thinking if that logo itself is already it's such a strong logo I feel that adding that stroke to it doesn't really add anything to me. But let's just keep tweaking and maybe we'll surprise ourselves. Yeah, it's such a cool shape. You know, it's like, I don't want to mess with the integrity of the logo by adding too much. So I'm almost feeling the second one. I think the second one's really working for me. Definitely like the first row. Really like that third one. Really like the third one in the second row. I'm really digging that second one. It was almost bingo, guys. It was almost bingo. But that second one really works for me. That stamp. So I think that's about it. I feel pretty excited about those options here. So let's create a new artboard. And let's just highlight the ones we want. So let's delete these. I'm just second guessing myself, but yep, I'm going to commit to it. All right. Now let's just align these up. So these are definitely the three I'm definitely committing to. So now we're just going to see how they all work together on a single page. Make sure there's that consistency, that there's a balance. There you go. I think it was way too big, but let's just... Yeah, let's shrink those a little. So I click like crazy, guys. I feel like I'm always clicking. And that's why I love Hotkeys, because Hotkeys really allows my process to go super fast. So that all looks pretty good. Definitely loving how they all work together. I think there's definitely a balance. They all feel really good. So everything looks good on white. So let's see how it all looks on a colored background, or for this instance, gray, because we're working with grayscales. So I'll just move these over here. I'm just going to grab these. All right. So where's the center line? It's about there. So let's shrink them down a little bit more so they all fit. You know, one of the other reasons why I work this way is if I can't see a logo in its most simplistic form, if it's as far as even just color goes, like it can work as an icon. It can work as an icon with a word mark. You know, it can work as a vertical. It can work horizontal. It can work as a stamp. You have to really push the bounds with these logos. And that's what makes you a really kick-ass logo designer, is really seeing it from so many different perspectives, and knowing how logos work, you know, in the purpose of them. So now that we have these logos on a darker background, I think they look really awesome. So if it can hold up with simple black and white or grayscale, then that's a great sign. That means that you're going in the right direction. You're messing with values to kind of give you an idea of like what needs to stand out, what needs to be kind of more subdued. So everything's looking pretty good. I'm really loving this look. Yeah. So yeah, that feels pretty good. So that's it. So we were able to do 12 designs, and from those 12 get our best 3, and then from those best 3 do a version on a white background, on a black background, and yeah, those look awesome. So now we're going to start getting into color because we feel pretty solid about this. And we're going to start diving into that in the next video. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.